And seems like we are live. Great, great. Joseph, hi again. I'm really glad we are able to have this live stream and discuss a great topic. We will talk about crafters and makers in software development teams. And you just went through a process of merging two teams, two companies, in fact, right, into one team, and we just discussed how difficult it is or will be in the near future to actually merge these two groups. While some of them is more, consists more of those crafters, right, and the other one consists more of the makers. So why don't you walk us through this process, your thoughts, and eventually we will build up some recommendations to everyone in this Facebook group.
All right. So hi, everyone. So I would start actually maybe defining what I mean by makers and crafters in the describing a developer, because I actually came up with this for myself only recently when going through this merger, because I saw that my team and the team that we joined with completely different type of developers are there. And I was trying to figure out what is the difference between them, because on the side of the other team, it was more about fast-paced, very quick iterations, very kind of fast delivery, but also the maybe less emphasis on quality in the code and less emphasis on processes and kind of robustness of the product. And on our side, we were focusing quite a lot to make a good code, write a good code, write it robustly, write it extensible, basically with thinking at the future, like looking at the future. We didn't want to kind of in 1 year just hit ourselves in the face. That was kind of our thinking. We wanted to be kind of proud to, when we look back, to see that, okay, that we did what we could at the moment. Obviously, always when you look back, it's bad code, but at least we didn't want to look back and kind of hit ourselves in the face.
So I was future-proof it, right? Future-proof the code.
Exactly. So I was thinking, like, why we have these different approaches, and I'll come up with a definition of makers and crafters, where I think in my team, what I have is more like crafters, where it's developers that really take pride in their work. They want to really produce not just working end result, working product, but actually they want to be proud of what they produced. Not just a very quick code that does the thing very quickly and they didn't spend too much time, but it kind of delivered value to the customer. No, they wanted to really think it through and have it the best they were able to. Where in the other team, it was more about deliver it to the customer as fast as possible, because there was a need for fast iteration. The customers wanted something very quickly, and that's what was delivered. So I was thinking, like, what approach is better? And actually, I think both are really good. And the danger is if you don't if you have just one type of developers in the team, because the problems that we had on our side is we were kind of slow. We were taking time to deliver the features, deliver the value to the customers, and it just took time. On the other side, in the team where there was mostly the makers, it was, let's say, a bit more brittle. It was breaking sometime, and also when you look into the code, it's like there is a lot of work ahead of us to improve it, to make it scale in future.
It's actually funny how you say we were slow, right? It also reminds me some of my colleagues in the past, but they were slow not because they focused too much on covering the code with tests, but because they were slow. So it's actually good to good to say, like, why you are slow, right? You were slow because your senior team was spending a lot of time on test coverages and building really robust system, right? Like future-proof system. So I just wanted to clarify, right? Like when you say we are slow, but it's also need to mention about a second value sometimes.
It's actually slow. It kind of sounds bad, right? But at some point it doesn't have to be bad, right? Mm-hmm. But it is bad if you are a fast-moving startup and you don't know if you would be on market in next 6 months, right? and building something that will last for 10 years, well, that's maybe not the best use of the time, right?
This is actually something that business people may say, right? Like, oh, our IT team is just so slow, right? That they're so slow. But the IT people just say, oh, we spend so much time writing code and with integration testing and everything. It doesn't depend on who's saying this.
Yeah, so that's basically, we can discuss like what's better or not, but I don't think that's the discussion. I just wanted to introduce the concept of these two types of developers, because I think it's pretty much different mindset for the developers. Like I like kind of the analogy with crafter, with maybe woodmaker who just makes a table. And maybe he really spends a lot of time, makes a beautiful table that is really good, costs a lot of money, take a lot of time. And then somebody who makes a table for IKEA, right? I mean, both of these would probably have customers. Both of these can make a living. But if you tell the maker, that the crafter that really takes special pride in their work, and tell them to make a table for IKEA, he probably would hate it. He may be able to do it, but he will probably hate it, and he would not enjoy it. And those are actually, I think, the type of developers, the crafters that actually, if you tell them, just please deliver quickly, just don't think about it, just very quickly, don't think about the code, we can throw it away in 6 months, doesn't matter. And some developers will actually hate that. They would not want to do that because they really take pride in the code. And I think it's important to know what type of developer you have.
Mm-hmm. And this reminds me how important it is to be aware of these different types of personas, right? In the past, I just realized it now, I was also this sort of maker, someone who just doesn't care much about the code quality, just wants to ship really quickly. It has advantages, obviously, because you can ship a product to the market at the beginning, but then it will catch you at some point. So it's good to balance that in. That's maybe what you would like to also discuss.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, exactly. I would say it's like when you are building a team, I think it's important to think about two things. Are you building a team where you have funding, you are maybe part of the team incorporation, you know that what you produce will be used by thousands, millions of people, and you need to produce something good? Or you are an experimental group. Maybe you are a startup, maybe you are an experimental group in a bigger company. But it's important to know what are you building and what is the use case of your situation, right? Because if you are just founded startup, then you probably you should not really think about the beautiful code, right? You should validate the idea, build the MVP as quickly as possible, and in the end, maybe completely rewrite it in 1 year time, right? But it doesn't. Maybe you would say as a crafter, like, why would I write something that I need to rewrite in 1 year? Well, the answer is that the idea may be stupid and there may be no company in 1 year, right? So you could spend half a year writing beautiful code or 1 month writing sucky code and to figure out that after 1 month, that's actually a bad idea and there is no business.
Yeah. And it reminds me how many clashes we've had in the past. I thought quickly, right? We had this fast-paced environment, but on the other hand, one person who was a crafter, and I still remember all these discussions and heated discussions with this developer because he strived for the quality, and we strived for just shipping or whatever was possible, and not knowing if we will be around in half a year or so. So it's great to realize this and hire people who fit the right situation at the right time.
Yeah, exactly, at the right time, because it changes the needs, right? If you are a successful company and you grow, you scale, suddenly you need to build the robust system. You need to build something that scales with your users, something that can withstand the traffic and withstand the influx, even new developers to the team, right? Because if you are 3-4 developers, like everyone probably knows all the pieces of the code, or it's easy to navigate even in messy code. But if you are 25 developers, then navigating through messy code and coordinating these developers become really, really difficult. So I think it's important to catch, like in a startup specifically, in a startup lifetime, it's really important to catch the time when you need to stop being the hacker team and start to shift a bit to the crafter team, where you really need to care about what's under the hood. I think that there are kind of famous companies like Twitter that actually catched it pretty late. Mm-hmm. And there were huge outages. And if you read the book Hatching Twitter, there's a lot of examples like that they were huge scaling issues, because in the beginning they spent a lot of time just hacking and they didn't think about the future. But I believe that's actually the right approach. Mm-hmm. And it's a good problem to have, having problems with scales, right? It's better than having no money on the bank account and going bust.
So I'm just wondering, how do we even recognize these people? Say we are startup, right? In the first phase, you mentioned, how do we know who is the right fit? Who is the crafter? Maker?
Yeah, this is a good question that I don't have a good answer for, because I didn't find any really good kind of way in interview to do. Like, the best is obviously have an experience with working with the person. If you worked with a person on some other job or some other projects, then you probably know his style of work and her kind of like how they work and what their mindset is, right? So that's probably the best. Obviously, that's very rare that you know the people. And I would say what I will now try to do, because it's been a bit kind of new concept for me too, as I realized. And what I will try to do is first realize, what do I need? Do I need a maker? Do I need a crafter? And then try to ask kind of behavior questions, like what is important, deliver the value fast, or make a robust code-based and robust feature that can scale. And these things like come up with questions that can differentiate like their mindset. It will not be perfect, and people change. So, but it's some way like more like behavior question. Like, I wouldn't ask them, are you a maker or crafter? Yeah. Because first, everyone lies. So even if they tell me the one, that doesn't mean it's true. And it's really hard. Maybe if the person didn't really think about it, like he will think like what you interviewer wants to hear, right? If I'm applying to startup, I will always tell that I'm a maker. Mm-hmm. And if I'm applying to enterprise, maybe I always tell that I'm a crafter, right? So
True. It's a bit misleading, but still, if I imagine two personas, right? One is the maker, one is the crafter. Maybe we could ask something like, what kind of environment do you? Well, this is the leading question. Okay, fair enough. Then what else could we ask?
I think it's about like trying to figure out the past behavior. Like maybe describe a situation when you needed to deliver a feature very fast. What was your approach? How did you approach it?
Or maybe it could be on a scale from 0 to 10, and I actually like these scales a lot. So where 0 is I don't care, and 10 means I would kill someone. Then
you're unmuted, Michal.
Then I would ask, guys. Okay, we have here kids entering the studio, and how long we will be recording this live stream. So guys, 5 more minutes to go. Okay, so coming back to the topic, Joseph, maybe you may continue.
I think we lost the thought. I think like we can slowly wrap it up. I see that you are in demand there, so let's wrap it up. I think I would say that it's important to have a balance in the team. And even if you are progressing and you have more scales, that doesn't mean you need only makers or only crafters in the team. Even enterprise actually needs hackers, because that's usually where you can innovate very quickly. That's those people are super good in MVPs, in validating some ideas, just building something very quickly, and you can use that for innovation. You can use that for figuring out some addition to your product that you are not sure about and you want to just test it. But if you put crafters on it, it will probably take too much time, because you are not sure you want this, right? So why should you spend so much time? So use makers for that. Identify who are the makers in your team and use them for the more experimental features that you have.
And now one really tough question at the end, Joseph. Are you ready for that?
Should.
So I remember, 2 years ago when you joined Get Ready, you were like, oh, now we will have all these, test coverages, up to high standard. I don't know what's your test coverage, but I suppose it's really high, and we will really build scalable system. And then after this experience of merging with the team, and I don't want to go into details, but I guess where I'm heading. Like, how would you approach this situation differently with next time? Would you still strive for this perfection, or would you rather say, okay, now even though in books they recommend this approach, but I would rather do it this way? Is that what you are saying, or suggesting, or even recommending?
No, I think I would put it in a way that in past company, Hotel Quickly, we were really makers, and we didn't catch soon enough the transition to need of the crafters. And we are fighting with what we hacked together quite a lot. In this current company, what I went a bit too much to the other extreme. I cared too much about the quality, and it was again not the right balance. So it's I think going a bit back, but not completely to the left. But again, it depends on the situation. If the future startup that I will be working on would be like something that in a month we really need to validate something, and I would not do any tests. But if there is already $10 million of funding, and we are starting building a product, and there is actually outlook to be on the market for 2 years, there is maybe some product market fit. Again, maybe I would go more towards the quality. Maybe not as much, but it's really hard balance to strike, I would say, and it really depends on every single company situation and also people in the team.
Not easy, clearly not easy. Well, we will see if people have any questions, and I would totally recommend everyone to ask at least 1 or 2 questions so that we can build up the next topics and live streams around those. So guys, if you are watching us, listening us, or reading some transcript, please go ahead and ask a question. It could be an easier one or a more difficult one. Joseph is ready to answer anything, as you've just seen.
And I would add one more thing. I would give you a homework. If you are leading a team or you are a developer, please think about like everyone in your team. Are they makers or crafters, or are you a maker or a crafter? And let us know how your structure of the team looks like.
Wonderful, wonderful. You can even write it in a way like, say, 10 crafters, 5 makers, and then we will see if it is balanced or not. Maybe you can also comment it a bit further. Have a good day, everyone. Thanks, Joseph.
Take care. Bye.
And again, cheers.